Hello! If you're someone who just started playing Star Rail and you see all these characters available for you to pull and you don't know which of these characters you might want to pull, then this list might help you give an idea on who to pull come this 2024 season. Though, remember that this list is subject to change both due to patches and opinions. These 5 characters are merely the ones I think are both fun to play and very useful to have. Everyone is free to have their own top 5. This list is made during the 2.0 patch, so for future watchers, just keep that in mind. Alright, with all that out of the way, let's get this going. I'm Liffy and welcome back to Casual Guides to Games Star Rail Edition. So, I'm already gonna be cheating a bit with number 5 here because it was a bit of a tie and I couldn't exactly separate them, but number 5, I'm putting Dan Heng Imbibitor Lunae or Jingliu. So, the reason I put them both together is because they are without a doubt the 2 best DPS that the game currently has, both in terms of raw damage output and also how straightforward it is to play with them. But they have 2 very distinct playstyles that allows people to choose which one of their playstyles that they would rather prefer. A quick rundown of their playstyles looks like this. So, Cooler Daniel here, let's say. He uses a lot more SP, meaning that you will need to use a lot more team rotations and a lot more management of your skill points to get the maximum damage out of him. Although his ult does help with this, if you use his ult you get like 2 freebies, so you basically only use 1 SP to get to his max enhancement. And the thing about Dan Heng is that if you are able to manage your SP very well, pretty much you're gonna have a DPS window anytime. You don't need to wait for a certain moment to unleash your whole damage. As long as you get your setup right, you can use your ult, you can use anything just as you go. Jingliu, on the other hand, needs to accumulate 2 stacks of her moon thingies in order to begin dishing out her big boy damage, as she basically turns insane and her skill turns into this weapon of mass destruction. And every time you use this weapon of mass destruction, it will consume a moon stack. So if you run out of those stacks, she will return to her normal state, and then you'll have to repeat the setup process. This means that she has a DPS window, so you're gonna need to make your team as according to when you get to your DPS window and set up according to when you get there. But those weapon of mass destruction attacks don't use SP, so they're pretty much free. They only take your team's HP, and that's only a little bit, and it buffs the attack instead of anything. So, not to mention that crazy state of hers gives her, when maxed out, an insane 50% crit rate boost, which makes relic farming for her much less of a hassle since you can just focus on getting more crit damage while not having to worry too much about how much crit rate you're able to get on her. Another reason of why I put these 2 together is because of the huge enemy type coverage. Not only will most enemies in the game have at least one of these 2 elements as one of their weaknesses, but these 2 are so strong that even if you find enemies that don't have those weaknesses, they will be demolished through sheer brute force. So it's more of a pick your poison kind of things, but instead of a poison for you, it's a poison for your enemy, you know? Whichever one you go with, you will definitely do big boy damage either way. Right, so now you're probably wondering, these 2 are the top tier DPSs and they are only at number 5? What about the rest of the list? Well, I'll let you in on some, well, very well known gacha secrets. Utility and support characters are king, especially in gacha games like this. Which is why at number 4 on this list will be our favorite little hacker, Silverwolf. So, Silverwolf is a nihility character that can not only either reduce your enemy's attack, defense, or speed, but she also has the unique ability of being able to take any one of your on-field character elements and implant that weakness to an enemy for a couple of turns. This is extremely useful for people who don't really have that many options for DPS and would really like to still be able to break their enemies when they don't have the weakness break for it. It can help you get through those pieces of content that has particularly beefy enemies when you can't exactly change your damage options all willy-nilly. On top of that, she provides a lot of defense shredding through her ultimate, which further boosts your DPS's capabilities through the roof. And any DPS will benefit with her presence in the team, which also makes her the go-to option for people who likes to run some sort of mono element teams. making these sorts of themes practically usable in every scenario possible, since you don't have to worry about whether or not your enemies will have the weakness that you're using or not. So the only downside is that she can only implant one of those placebo weaknesses at any given time, and you can't simply stack weaknesses on top of each other. And the random element selection can cause for some frustrating moments where the element selected would end up being the one that you didn't really need. Overall, however, she is one of the best utility characters in the game, has a unique mechanic that no other characters can do, and can also hold her own in terms of debuffing the enemy. Now, on to number 3, we have Ruan Mei. Ruan Mei is, in my opinion, the best support character you can currently get in the game. She is a harmony character which focuses on buffing your team through Bake Effect. Huh? Bake Effect? Wait. She focuses on buffing your team through Break Effect, Speed, and Pure Damage Boost. She's one of those characters that is basically like once you've tasted her presence and her kit in your team, you can't really go back to anything else. And honestly, her kit really accentuates that with the amount of things that it can buff. For one, with the press of her skill, which lasts for 3 turns, and just by building her break effect to 160%, which is not that hard to do, you can literally gain 68% damage boost to any of your units with just her simply existing. And yeah, her existence is also enough for your team to get even more speed buffs and break effect buffs. Again, just by existing. To top it all off, her ultimate makes it so that any weakness break that you inflict on your enemies will get extended for another turn. So imagine having gone through your own DPS phase and then it gets back to the broken enemy's turn, only for them to remain broken for another turn? Yeah, pretty insane. What makes her so good is that her kit can literally work with any attack team that you put her in. Whether it be a pure hyper carry team, follow-up attack, DOT, it doesn't matter. Her buffs are beyond universal, and it will do something for your team regardless of what that effect may be. The only sort of weakness she has is a weakness that pretty much every Harmony character has, which is the fact that they are squishier than a baby's toy and that for some reason, they will pull all the aggro and get 3-shotted before you can even make a move. Harmony problems. But that's where the number 2 character on this list comes into play, which is none other than the female embodiment of Jesus himself, Xuan. Now I said that Ruan Mei can fit to any attack team. Xuan here can fit to literally any team you can think of the face of the earth. Purely due to the fact that when she is on your team, then there will be very little chances of anyone from your team from ever biting the dust. Though you might say as well, she is a preservation character.
It's his job, isn't it? Isn't that what you're supposed to do?
Well, yeah, but she's the absolute ultimate preservation and sustain character. She's literally Gandalf saying you shall not pass every single time an enemy goes on to attack one of your units. I need to sneeze. Woo! Anyways, you're not gonna find another preservation character who can take damage on behalf of another character while also reducing the amount of damage they're taking in the first place. If her skill is active, she also cancels out any first instance of crowd control debuff that your enemy tries to put on your team, making it very useful against enemies who always put DOT damage on your allies. On top of all that, she also has her own damage support capabilities. Her skill allows her to increase the team's max HP and also gives off a maximum of 12% additional crit rate when her skill is active. 12%! Just like that, just with a skill. She's the reason why my Jingliu can reach 100% crit rate when she's on her insane state. Oh, and if she ever falls below 50% HP, as long as she has a talent stack available, she will regenerate back a maximum of 90% of her HP in a blink of an eye. This also applies to times where your allies use HP consuming skills, so you don't need to worry about relying on enemies to always activate her talent. And I'm not finished. If you use her ultimate, she heals all your allies for 5% of her HP, which, might not seem like much, but do remember that she is not an abundance unit. Having all this value into one character just makes for a unit that will never be a negative to pull for. Besides, if you ever want extra security and you're that scared of your team dying, then just slap any abundance character alongside her and your team should stay alive until the world ends for all I care. So now we get to the last character in this list, and to be honest, I'm also kind of cheating here. Because my number one pick is basically whoever it is that you want to play the most. And I'm not saying this as just a cop-out answer. I genuinely believe that when you know who you want to play in this game, then the question of who you would want to pull later on can pretty much solve itself then and there. Here, let me put it in this kind of situation. Let's say you want to pull for Jingliu. You find out how her kit works, and then you find out what you need to make sure that she can be that spanking DPS that you want her to be. So you start looking for characters that can help her get there. My case, I immediately realized that Luocha was probably going to be a great fit for her, due to the fact that she consumes HP when you use her Insanity attack, and Luocha has both an auto heal and scalable healing when you deal damage. And that is just one instance of such a chain happening. The more characters that get released, the more synergy and ways to play that you're probably going to find to be interesting. Another case of that happening with my Jingliu was when Fu Shen gets released. With her ability to increase your allies' HP, coupled with the fact that Jingliu's own Insanity attack consumes HP and then gets an extra buff from it, it's another synergy and another character that I want to pull to make my previous character shine. All those justifications can be made for any character that you want to pull. Like I said before, the other 5 are only the characters that I view to have the most value and fun out of getting, but plenty of other arguments can be made for other characters. Case in point, Sparkle's release was basically a giant red sign for people to use her alongside Imbibitor Lunae because of the extra SPs she'll give you. I, for one, still preferred to use Bronya because of the cleanse that comes with her skill, and the fact that Acheron was coming next, so I really didn't have the jades to pull for both. So in the end, I did suggest 5 characters to pull, didn't I? So I'd say that the basis of the list remains valid. If I were to choose between Cooler Daniel and Jingliu, however, I'd probably take Jingliu simply because of the easier playstyle. But then again, that'll be up to you guys to decide. So that rounds up the list for this video. Hope it's given you guys a clue on who you guys should pull for 2024. Let me know if you've got a different top 5 down in the comments below. As always, do leave a like if you like the video and a dislike if you don't, and consider subscribing if you enjoy the content. Until then, the name's Liffy, and I'll see you next time.